Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Darcy, and for the last few weeks, I've been sharing the ugly side of change, really powerful and personal and professional conversations about wisdom gained through changes that were anticipated or traumatic. And I was just wanting to extend an invitation for you to subscribe to my channel and stay informed about these powerful, insightful, healing conversations that I'm providing each week. So thanks so much, and make sure to subscribe under this. So I am so excited to be talking to Dr. Alison Zimon. I was thinking that this was going to be such a blessing because we said this before we hopped on and recorded, but Allison sees changes in people daily from, well, Dr. Zyman is a reproductive endocrinologist and she helps people get pregnant. And so, what an amazing blessing you are that you can help someone in such a crisis,
Yeah.
find their heart's true desire. And so when I started this series, I was like, I have to talk to Allison because
Yeah.
you bring such a humble, graceful,
Mm.
understanding, loving approach to this time in people's lives that are just chaotic. So thank you so much for your, taking time to talk about this change, the ugly side of it.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for inviting me and thank you for those kind words. But you are absolutely right. I do see that on a daily basis. And it's a privilege, right? And
Right.
it's beautiful to see the other side of it. But, and I'm sure we'll talk about this when you're in that moment, it's really hard to know that there'll ever be anything else beyond that, right? And that's hard seeing people struggle through that, and having lived through your own struggles, right? It's
Right.
that's a hard piece. I'm glad you're doing this. I think it's a great concept. I think it's brilliant, like most of what you do. So anyway, happy to be a part of it. Thank you.
So we were talking about, like, especially for me when I was going through the infertility and then the other crazy changes in my life that were unexpected changes, like when you receive a diagnosis of infertility, that comes
Yeah.
out of nowhere.
Right.
And then when your relationship changes, you're like, what?
Right.
I didn't, you might not see that coming too.
Right.
But, I was so focused, blinding focused on just getting pregnant.
Right. Yeah.
And that narrows your vision so much that you see the other possibilities in life.
Right. So true.
And you know it better than
Right.
I do. Like you've experienced it personally, but you witnessed that
Right.
same cycle,
Right.
that same cycle in someone. It's a physical cycle,
Yep.
but also the cycle of when you just lose
Right.
your ability to see.
Right. So true. It's so true. And I think thinking of, being in the position I am just in the professional world, I just don't think, and I think this happens again, and I think this is why it's great that you're talking about this, is that there's something about being in the throes of whatever that change, and I think we're talking about unwelcome change or unplanned
Yeah.
change or change bestowed
Traumatic
upon you.
change. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. That it's really, I mean, everybody has a different coping mechanism, but I think that it's really hard to see clearly at that time. And, I think it's hard to know how to help people. I think it's great talking with somebody like you to help find that clarity. But in my opinion, that's the hardest challenge of it all. And I see that for people, just not knowing exactly what the future will hold and how unnerving that is. And then deciding there's going to be one
One
mechanism to
way.
cope with it, right? And just
Yeah.
like you said, the blinders sort of approach. But yeah, it's a very difficult place to be in life, whether it's fertility or some other diagnosis or some personal change, like you said, a relationship change. All those things are incredibly challenging, and it's hard to see people weather through that on a day-to-day basis.
It is. I was just having a conversation with someone, and um, I think I know I'm guilty of this. Like,
Hmm.
I think back about the wisdom, the pain, that turned into the passion
Right,
that I was offering up, like, okay, let's problem solve this. We know we can get through this.
right.
There was so much resistance
Hmm.
that there wasn't listening to step on a new path. It was
Right,
listening to out of fear. I,
right,
I don't even know if that's the right way of saying it.
right.
And I think that like I always tried to learn from you in such a
Hmm.
calm manner because you have a way of just keeping that calm
Right.
approach when someone's doing that. Me, somehow I was like, okay, let's take a beat because
Yeah,
there's a lot of resistance right now.
right. Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe my professional world is different than my personal world, though, do you know? And so,
Yeah.
I mean, I said this in the beginning, but me, listen, it's great to have a life without hardship, but it's hard to come by.
Right.
I think hardship does work into life, and it's never, you don't expect it, and you're not ever really prepared to deal with it, and all of a sudden you've got this new challenge, and you've got to figure out how to make your way. And so I think, everybody's challenges are their own. And I don't necessarily believe that you can apply one challenge to another, but you can definitely learn from it. And you
Right.
can learn yeah, I think you had mentioned this, what you wish you had known during
Right.
that time, you
Right.
somehow can see. And this is the clarity piece, just really not knowing what is maybe even best for you or what's going to
Right.
help you survive it as much as possible. And so perhaps that's been some of it that helps me in my professional world. And I would never, like I said, I don't think any trauma or hardship is really applicable to another one. Everybody's story and pain is their own. But it does help you to kind of have some perspective and understand, and also have hope. I mean, I think when you're in a professional role, giving people hope is really important. And I think when you're in the throes of hardship,
Right.
that's all you want. You want
Right.
that you can believe the hope that you want to hold on to, but that's the problem. You don't know if you can trust it, right?
Right.
You want
Right.
to be hopeful, but what if it doesn't work out, right? What if?
Right.
And you don't know that, right? So, anyway, I'm lucky too because the field of fertility medicine is often very successful, but it isn't always, right?
Right.
And so people do have to hold on to that hope, and sometimes it doesn't get realized. But um, I think in my professional role, I really feel like being calm is helpful to people because I remember when I was in tough spots, I just was looking for people who seemed stable, who
Yeah.
seemed like I could depend on,
Right.
who could give me, in golf. I'm not a golfer anymore, but you used to talk about a swing thought, right? It was just
Right.
all the noise, all the angles, all the way the tempo, all that stuff. Just forget like one easy thought. And I just remember that's all I wanted. And I found that from people who I thought were, stable, even keeled, could give me guidance. I just wanted that swing thought. It wasn't as easy as that, but that was always what I was looking for because I felt like I could follow that, right?
Right.
The
I
swing.
love that,
So,
Allison. I don't think you've ever said that to me before, the swing thought. I love
right. Yeah.
that.
It is because if you've ever golfed, and like I said, I don't anymore, but the more you start overthinking it, the more complicated it gets and you throw everything else off. But if you just have kind of one thought that just gets you through the swing, usually you can follow that path much more easily and you actually are accomplish a much better stroke and hit and play better. But yeah, it's a common thing in golf, but I do apply it to a lot of things because it does help. Life is really complicated and we try to overcomplicate it, and simplifying it is sometimes helpful.
I love that. I'm gonna share that. Well, we're
Yeah.
sharing it, but I want to share it more because I know for me, I still use, I'm a queen of the sticky notes.
Right,
When I was
right.
going through it, I would just write
Oh,
those
that's it.
thoughts
Yeah,
down.
good.
Like how could I be working and having my house and doing all
Right,
this stuff, but then can't like all those thoughts that just interrupt,
right.
that doesn't
Yeah.
give you that single focus of the swing.
Right. Or just take one sticky note. Like I
Yeah.
make lists of all these things and it's like it's overwhelming. Nobody could accomplish it. Like I couldn't even accomplish it on my best day. But why do we do that? We all these like it's the
Why?
same thing. It's like a gazillion sticky notes. But if you just had the one,
I
you could
had
probably do that.
I was laughing at myself because
Right.
I hosted a party
Yeah.
and I had this list for one
Right.
day that was
Yeah.
like, I was like, this is like a month's worth of stuff. Like, you know, why do you think you could get this done? You know,
Right.
why? And I think that goes to like creation, any form of
Right.
creation.
I agree. It's so true.
Like
It's so true.
we talk a lot when I'm in a group or coaching, like you help people like make a human.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It is. It is, but you know, I think, I mean, yes, that makes the work amazing, and I love it, and I never take it for granted. It is incredibly easy for me to get up every day and do my work, for me to put everything into it because it is I feel like very fortunate. I'm not really sure various things happened in life to lead me here, but I feel very fortunate to do this kind of work. I think I always knew I was probably going to do medicine because I was a science person and I wanted to help people and put my effort into something that I felt was constructive for other humans, this sort of community sense. But there's something very special about fertility because exactly it. You see the fruits of it and how having a child, if you're lucky enough, if you go through fertility or however things work and you seek that out and you actually have that, it's just such a gift and it's just such a beautiful thing. Gives people so much joy, and it just gives people joy to themselves, to their family, to their friends, to their neighbors, their grandparents, everybody. It's just such an incredible thing. But on the flip side, that's what makes it so hard too, is that you want
Right,
that so badly, right?
right.
And I
It's a
think that that's
legacy change because
right. It
it's
is,
it's the
right?
ripple is generational. Like it's a
Yeah,
legacy change.
right.
And I think just to go back to that point, like I'm not an angry person. Like
Yeah,
I don't think I'm of an angry person. Like I
yeah,
feel joyful even in moments that are chaotic, but I was so angry during that time. And
yeah,
something inside helps me today when
yeah,
I realized what we're talking about. Like
right,
it takes so many steps to create this, my humans, my
right.
children, that I was angry at myself the whole entire time because I wasn't pregnant.
Yeah,
But in turn, my body was hyperstimulating and creating all these
right,
follicles and
right,
doing all this amazing uterine lining,
right,
and it was invisible. And I think like change does that to you,
right,
that you don't realize all the, sub changes that you don't see.
right. Well, you're not the same person. I think you're not the same person when you go through hardship. And I think looking at that time when you're in the throes of it, it's it's hard to accept that, right? I
Right,
think, and for example, I think everybody sees everyone has what you don't have. You know what I mean? It's
right.
very, for some reason, when you're in that moment, when let's say you're trying to conceive and you're not successful and you have infertility and you're doing these IVF treatments, or you have the horrible situation and it's a horrible divorce and it's awful and it's toxic and it's painful, you know at that moment you just want normal, you want cookie cutter, you want white picket fence, and you feel like it's so unfair that you don't have it. But I,
Yeah,
I wish, and this is, you had asked the question, what do you wish you knew that you know now, or the wisdom? I wish I didn't spend a lot of energy on wanting something that I wasn't going to have and couldn't have, and it was going to be a new normal. It was going to be something. But for some reason, you can't get out of that just feeling like, why can't I have this sort of, like I said, white picket fence, cookie cutter kind of life? And it
right.
might be, whatever your vision of having, being a mother or being a parent might look like, or what you think of as the perfect relationship. And there's, the husband is taking care of, someone else, or, whatever, however you structure your family or your relationships. And I think that when you're, after you, when you're not in that period of time where you're in so much pain, somehow you want your own path. You want your independent. You see like what's unique about the way you've gone about it, but somehow then for some reason you want like boring and normal so badly and you can't have it. And I don't know why we stay in that. That would be something that if I could tell myself then, just shake myself like, no, just, seek something else, seek something a little
Right.
different, take a different path. It's going to be okay. You don't have to be typical. But, it's hard. It's easy to say that, but it's not so easy to do that. You
I
mentioned anger, though. I think anger, in a way, I mean, anger is inevitable, right? And I think it's a normal emotion. I don't know. I felt like in a way, anger helped me, and I'm not no one wants to be angry. It's not, but at least it got me motivated. You know what I mean?
I
It
know,
it
I
put me into
know.
a fighting mode rather than just like
Depressed
smoking
or
and right,
yeah, or staring at air. Like the
right,
anger is like I don't know why. Maybe it was my like I push away from being angry, but like you're right. Like that anger was like, okay,
right,
get out of my way. That's not
right,
gonna, that I maybe that's the fuel.
right. It is. It's like, just to accept the natural emotions that you have, and that's, I mean, it's okay to want everything to be normal. It's okay to be angry that you don't have it and be kind of just feisty and fighting for things. And on the same side, because you're not always going to be angry and you don't want to be angry all the time. That's not good. That's not good for your health. That's not good for
Oh,
your stress system. It's not good for anything. But there is something about it that's motivating. But then there's that other side, that loneliness and isolation that
yeah,
comes with it,
yeah,
and that's also really hard. Like
yes.
I wish I could have spent less time in that space. Do you know? It takes a lot of your time.
I love that you just said that because it's like the hindsight rear view mirror that we're talking
Right.
about. I was like, wow, I was really sad for a long time like that, like
Yeah.
wishing it was
Right.
different when different was okay for me.
Yeah. I know. And it's like, and but you go to it so much and it's like doesn't help you. You daydream, you're driving, you go right there into like the loneliness, isolated, sadness, or if it's anger, whatever it is. You come home from work and there's nobody there and you just go on the couch and but
I hear
it
you.
if you could only channel all that time and energy and just like not think about it and think about
Right,
something else. And I think reading is a great way to do that, but sometimes you can't even do that because your mind just wanders. So that would be the wisdom if I could do that better, because there'll be something else in life, right? There'll be another
right,
hardship. It's inevitable. It's just I think you want to believe that you can protect yourself from it, but I think as you get older, you just realize you have to better roll with it and figure out
yeah.
how to incorporate it into your life and shift the change piece and shift where your life is going rather than just be so mad that it's happened. But it's not that easy.
No,
It's
it's
not that
not.
easy.
Allison, Grace just graduated from college, and I was
Yeah.
going down to graduate and to travel her home, move her out of
Right.
her apartment. And I'm in my little bubble, and I'm flying from Boston to Tampa.
Yeah.
All the parents are on the flight, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
I'm traveling alone in my little bubble, going happy to go to
Yeah.
graduation. And this woman on the tram to go get the rental car says to me, Are, are you traveling all alone?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And, and then I was
Yeah.
like, I am traveling all
Right.
alone.
And then all of a sudden, right? That's
Yes,
exactly what it is. All that comes back, and all of a sudden, why are you? Why? What? It isn't normal. People you look to your right, you look to your left, and everybody else has this perfect structure of, what you fantasize is perfect,
right.
right?
And
It's
I
all
said
a
to her,
fantasy.
I was
Yeah.
like, it didn't dawn on me because
Right.
like what we were saying, like I was okay.
Right.
I'm going to see my
Right.
baby graduate. Here I am.
Right.
And it wasn't until she's like, "Oh, you're traveling alone." And
Yeah.
in my head, I'm like, "What? I always do."
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
like what? Why
Right.
is that an issue?
Right.
You know?
Right.
But it's exactly what we're saying. It wasn't until like the
Yeah.
comparison.
Yeah. right,
I'm like, oh, couple, 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 and then
right,
I was like, and so I said to her, oh, what car, what car are you getting a rental from?
yeah,
And she's like, oh, I don't even know.
right,
He tells that.
yeah,
And that triggered it too. I
right,
don't even know why I'm saying this. I haven't said it out loud. And I was like, wow, like I
yeah.
didn't even, that wasn't even in my awareness.
Right, right. Well, and that's what our patients struggle with all the time because,
Right,
when, I mean, it's very like just to keep it simple, you desire a child, you want to be a parent, and it's not being given to you, and you're doing everything right. You're eating well, you're going to your appointments, you're focusing, you're like got support, you're doing acupuncture, and it's just it's taken from you somehow, even though, it's just and there's just so many reminders everywhere of what is perceived to be,
the
that
whole,
parenthood kind of
yeah,
fantasy beautiful world. And I mean, obviously we know there's huge triggers and holidays and, Mother's Day, for example, Father's Day, all these things, but if only we could just not let that piece of it bother us,
right,
right? The part that makes it feel like there's a world that you don't have. I mean, if you could
right,
just, it's going to happen one way or another. You're going to get through the fertility treatment, if we're talking about fertility treatment, and you'll be successful and you'll be so happy and so glad that time is behind you. And then, or maybe it doesn't work,
right,
but then you shift and you find a new path to feeling complete,
right.
but we can't see it then. It's
No,
so hard, and it's all that time spent on, I don't know, it's very isolating, lonely, angry, but I don't know how we do that. I mean, there's also a thought that maybe it just takes time. There's nothing you can do to rush that progression, rush that growth through a period of hardship and being on the other side of it, however you resolve it. I don't know, but I feel
well,
like I get better at it as I get older. I do. I really do. I feel like you do improve, you do learn skills, but it's
after
still
that
pretty hard.
interaction, I was like, why didn't I have like, because I was like, not even in that awareness. It's kind of like when we talk to our clients, someone walks
Right,
up to them and says, are you going to have a kid? Why aren't you going to have a baby?
right, right,
oh, so
right,
you have this prepared script
right.
because you get to the point that you're afraid that no matter where you go, someone's going to ask you that.
No.
But I was in such my little happy bubble that
Right,
you didn't see
right,
that coming. Oh, you
right,
travel alone? Like it's
right,
something like I'm like,
right,
zip it. So
right.
I was like, what could I have said to them?
Right. And what do you say? I mean, how do you, except that you just sort of realize that they don't understand and that you are very happy and your family structure and, the way you parent or whatever is working and it's good and it's
Yeah,
the way, it's the
I,
path that, maybe you chose it, maybe you didn't, but it's the path you're on. And you know what? If you just live in the moment and be happy with it, you're happy with it, right? And that's
yeah,
that's really the key, So
I think I said to her, I enjoy traveling.
yeah,
So it wasn't like I don't mind traveling alone and I
right.
love travel. Like I
Right.
just enjoy it.
And
And
that's probably better than being angry or trying to re-educate her because that's just going to throw you off, right? You
then,
don't
yeah.
you don't need that. But
And
but that
it's like the elevator speech that, we script the clients.
right.
Like I have a whole
Yeah,
team working on that
right.
because
Yeah. But that is helpful, right? Because
right,
because I think in the end you really do want to stay out of that space as much. You don't want to get bang yourself up when you're in that angry, lonely, why me, poor me space. But you do want to try to spend less time because it doesn't get you anywhere. You want to redirect it, right? Redirect it to humor, redirect it to
right,
reading, redirecting whatever you're creative, if it's gardening or if it's doing art or playing an instrument or something. And it's not easy to do, but the more you do a little bit of that, the better. And so having these kind of script responses are really helpful because it doesn't send you sinking back down and regressing into that space that is so isolating. But, it helps you kind of be like, no, this is my world and I
this is
am living in the moment of it. And maybe there's a lot of it that's not ideal and not great. And other people would, you know, I don't know, criticize or feel badly for me or whatever, but it is my world, right?
right.
And
Well,
I
I did
accept it.
get in the car and say, ow, like, what did that bring up in
Right,
me? You know,
right,
like what? And I was like, okay, I'm going to use this as like a little teaching moment. Like, what did that bring up with me? And I'm like, ow, like I felt judged and left
yeah,
out, all those
right,
things. So I'm like, and then, that prayer, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you. I
right,
love you.
yeah,
I use that as a mantra because I wanted
right,
to say to her, like,
yeah,
but and I think it's so like overlapping to the same
right,
kind of feelings of fertility or creative or
right,
a lost dream. Like
right,
it brings up all these little parts in you that just need
right,
to be loved, I
right.
guess.
It's so good. That's so true, you know? The one thing I would say that I did well, because there's a lot of things I didn't do well, but one thing I did do well is I had the sort of insight to know that I needed help, right?
Yeah.
And I think that would be other advice for people. And I know people hear it, but I mean, we all have our personalities, right? And if your personality is one that is strives on being independent and taking care of yourself and whatever, it's very hard to lean
Yes.
on people and to not be
Yes.
your best self, to just like call your closest friend in the middle of the night because you're like having a panic attack and you just can't get a
Yes.
grip. But you know what? If you don't do that, you're going to have such a harder time
I
because
know.
your world will help you. And it might be smaller. Sometimes these things that happen, like
Yes.
fertility, sometimes there's people you can't hang out with anymore. They don't get
Oh,
it. There's a family member who thinks you're stressed and that's why you have the problem that you have,
yeah.
or
That's
even if it's a
typically what it is,
divorce,
right?
right?
That's typically what it is. You
Right.
can't.
There's a whole world of people that
Right.
aren't your friends anymore because all of a
Right.
sudden you have a divorce and you can't talk to those people anymore, right?
Right.
And then there's always like the different people you hung out with, right? So you used to, if you hung out with single people, but now they're all doing baby things, or you hung
Right.
out as couples, right? And
And
now you're
then
single, right?
now you're the fifth wheel.
You might have less supports, but the
Right.
ones that are there and are willing to offer their time, just take it and just take it as often
Right.
as you want because they're happy to help and they really do help you. I really felt like I was really good at that. I still spent plenty of time like struggling on my own and feeling I was on my own, but I just really am so appreciative of those times when I reached out to certain family members, to friends, even people at work. Like all of a sudden you get these people that you don't expect to be, someone who's been in the experience that's maybe somewhat similar to you, and they kind of sense it and they reach out and you just go have a coffee or a tea with them or something. And
Right.
all of a sudden it just like comforting, right?
Yeah.
And you learn from that too. When you're on the other side of it, when you're not struggling so much, it's good to remember that, and to be that person for those people in your life. But I was thankful that I somehow knew how to do that. And it was small, like I said, the people available, but
Right.
it was really nice to know that it was good to ask for help. And I wasn't my normal self, and you're not your normal self, and you're not as
No.
strong and you can't accomplish as much because you're
No.
you're you got this other thing you're battling, and it weakens you. It really does,
It does.
so it's good to have those people to bolster you up and accept it. But
I love how it weakens you. That's exactly what it does. And it's
it
not
does,
forever. It's just
right?
temporary, but it feels like it could be
It feels
forever.
like forever, and it feels like you're never going to get out of it. And the problem is you don't, I mean, you can have faith that you'll find a new normal for you. And I almost hate to use the word normal because that's half the problem, is that you want it to be, you find your own way, you find your
Right.
own path, and you come to accept it, and you see the joy and the beauty in that. And it may not be what, I thought was ideal, and
Right.
many people may not think is ideal, but it's your life and you have to live in the moment and accept it. But it's just hard. It's hard to know that you'll get there when you're in the throes of
Because
it,
of it.
but
I
somehow
love
you
that you
do.
said that, ask for, accept the help.
Right,
Because I think a lot of women wouldn't ask for it, seek
right,
it, or accept it.
right, right. Or even it is a litlittle demoralizing too, because
Yes.
when you accept the help, you have to accept what's causing you pain, or what the situation is, and it makes it, some of it is just not acknowledging it, because if you don't acknowledge it, then it's not real, and you can try to pretend it's not
Not
there, but
that bad.
you
Yeah.
know that doesn't really help you, right?
No.
You know, and I mean, the whole problem too is that sometimes you do reach out for help, and you know that help hurts, right? And you just have to, that's a risk you have to
Right.
take, because you'll
Right.
find the people where the help really is help, you know, and that's few and far between, I think, where you go to help and it's not very helpful. You have to be, you
Picky
know,
choosy.
picky, right? But yeah, it's not easy. It's hard. So I, you know, I feel for, you know, the people I work with on a daily basis, because you know, it's a tough place to be, to not know what your future holds and to want something so badly. Um and you know, on the other side of it, you know, it's like people say to me every day, I mean, you get this too, I'm sure, like, you know, and it's probably not true in your world because I think people could use you for life, right? Whereas not so
Oh,
much for me. But
thanks.
people say, like, you know, no offense, but I hope I never
I
have to
never
see
see you
you again.
again. I
Right?
know.
And I get that a lot because they're on the other side,
Side.
right? And they've
Right.
closed that and they've moved on, you know, whether, you know, it might be a different path to whatever they were seeking if it's parenthood than they expected, but they're on the other side of it. But it's hard to know that when you're in the throes of it, for sure.
You're so amazing, Allison. Like you're such a healer. You are. And like it saddens me that like I think women, well, I'm gonna dump me with you, but like we don't we don't think like for whatever reason that we need to do what you just said.
Yeah, no, no, I know we don't.
Because we're so busy helping others and
Right.
making sure everybody else is okay
It's
that
true. It's really hard to accept help
yeah,
because you know you are weakened, but that's just another admission of your weakness, right?
right.
And um you know, and I mean, it's it's hard to,
Right.
you want that weakness to go away, you want to overcome it, but you sort of have to accept it and get support to get there. And that's a tough, you know, mind mechanism as well, but you
Well,
know,
I
I
think
think
I think you're so spot on when you're like you gave it like a combination though, and you don't even I don't think that you realize like the combination of reaching out for help and being kind to yourself and
right.
fill your life with other things. Like everything that you're talking about is like a combination
Right,
to getting, you know, right now there was a beginning, but you see everybody in the middle of it.
right. Yep,
And then you get glimpses of the end, you
right.
know? So
True.
like
I know,
you're
right?
you're
Right,
you know, you're the poster girl to say you're gonna get through this. Like it's gonna
right,
be okay.
right. Yeah. But
I'm so grateful for you.
well, likewise, I mean, we've known each other for a very long time, and it's just you know, I mean, thank goodness there are people who do what you do, because, you know, sometimes it is hard to find those people in your life who are
Right.
helpful. Like I said, sometimes you go for help and it hurts, and that's
That's
awful, and it shuts
I
you
hate
down, and then you
that.
don't want to ask for help ever again because you're vulnerable to begin with, and then to get that. And you know, I mean, it's just, it, like I said, it doesn't happen very often, but there'll be a family member who's exactly the wrong thing, and see, you know, you should have done this, or this is why, or you're
Or
too
you should have
stressed, or
gotten
this is
over
what.
it. Yeah.
Right, exactly, right. But the professional help is a good idea too. I was not good at that. I was very bad at that. And I think that would be something that I should have done at that time, but not sure why I didn't believe in that. But it is really helpful. And, you know, because that is safe help. You can count on
Yeah.
that, right?
Yes.
That's like,
Yes.
you can be
I love
vulnerable
that
and
word too. Safe
yeah,
help.
right?
Yeah.
Right? Because, and professionals know what they're doing, like you, I mean, you really do, I mean, you make this your passion, right? So not only do you have motivation to do this, but you have acquired the skills through years of doing this and reading and writing about it and talking with people for years and years, that you actually do know some of the tricks. There are some swing thoughts that you can use, right, to
Thank
get
you,
you
honey. Yes.
through something. So that would be so it's great you do what you do. And I know it's hard too, because it's probably very exhausting, and you can't always solve everything for everyone right then and there, but over time you can.
I
right?
know it's a pro it might we're coming up. We got less than a minute and they're gonna boot me off. But the last thing I'll say is what you have is
Yeah,
wisdom. Like it's a marathon.
right. It is. Yeah, it is. And you have to, but you have to, I mean, you could argue that you have to do it day in and day out because there'll be big setbacks and huge ones that are awful and they take on an era of your life, years,
Hmm?
right? And then they're the day to day, the week to week ones, right? And it's the same skill set, just different level of challenge,
Challenges.
right?
Right.
But yeah, so it's so great to talk with you, Kristen. I always enjoy this. I'll do this
I love you
anytime.
so much. Thank
Yeah,
you, hon.
likewise.